In today's video, you will gain thorough knowledge about the nature, classification, cause, assessment, and management of a hamstring strain. Having a look at the particular muscles which make up the hamstring and their locations will give us information followed by the rehabilitation procedures for a hamstring tear, and an indication of the indicators and considerations that need to be addressed before the athlete can return to play. By understanding how hamstrings work gives us a vital clue on their modes of injury. The hamstring is a group of muscles located at the back of the upper leg, and they are a group of three separate muscles. The top of the muscles is identified as the bicep femoris, which is attached to the lower part of the pelvis, identified as the semitendinosus, followed by the lower leg bone just before the knee joint, identified as the semimembranosus. Hamstring tears are common in sports that involve sprinting, acceleration, deceleration, rapid change in direction, and jumping. A hamstring strain is a tear which occurs in one or more of the hamstring muscle group. The main role of the hamstring is to bend the knee and move the thigh backwards at the hip. In a scenario of volleyball, the hamstring's job is to work hard to decelerate the tibia, also known as the shin bone. As it swings out when running to a certain position to be ready to return the ball, it is that in the phase of movement just before the foot strikes the ground, the hamstrings are maximally activated and are approaching their maximum length. As hamstring tears are known as overuse tissue injury and can be classified as an acute soft tissue injury, strains are graded into 1, 2, or 3 depending on the severity of a hamstring injury. Grade 1 tear consists of minor tears within the muscle giving the feeling of tightness in the posterior thigh. The athlete may be able to walk with a grade 1 tear but will have some discomfort involving minimal swelling, but however, if bending the knee against resistance whilst laying down won't produce much pain. Grade 2 tears involve limping and giving sudden twinges of pain occasionally during activity, with noticeable swelling and pain pressure increasing. Compared to the grade 1, bending the knee against resistance will cause pain and straightening the knee will be difficult. Grade 3 tears will affect walking as aid assistance such as crutches are needed. Severe pain, particularly engaging in activities such as bending, swelling will be immediately visible, usually within the first 24 hours within the injury period.
Hamstring tear is suspected. The therapist, trainer, specialist, or doctor will usually carry out the toe taps method. Well, if a severe hamstring tear was to occur, normal steps will be used. As to talking and observing, medical referral should be done. Abbreviation associated with toe taps, asking how the injury happened and where the pain is located, and if there are any previous injuries linked with the hamstring. Where does it hurt?
Right here.
Is there any previous injuries?
No.
Observe is the second abbreviation for the toe taps method. Observing and palpating the injured site such as the bicep femoris, semitendinitis, and the semimembranosus to identify is there any site of swelling and bruising. Here's the third step for the toe taps method. Touching the injured site to check for warm, muscle tension, gaps in the muscle, tenderness, swelling, bruising will indicate any tears.
The rehabilitation process after injury can take time depending on the type and severity of the injury. The supervision of a doctor and physiotherapist is ideal to restore optimal function of the area and return the athlete to competition quickly and safely and prevent re-injury. Certain guidelines for a hamstring injury consist of progressive mobilization, graduated exercise, including stretching, conditioning, total body fitness, training, and the use of heat and cold. The use of heat and cold can be done by using heat or cold packs. This will depend on the type of injury and the length since the injury has occurred. Ice can be used instantly on all degrees of a hamstring strain, as it reduces swelling and pain. For example, in the first 24 hours of a second degree hamstring strain, which requires ice pack to restrict blood vessels, reducing blood flow to injured areas and inflammation. The use of a heat pack can also be used to treat injuries as heat increases the blood flow. The use of heat on sore muscles and tendons within the hamstring area will help to relax them and increase elasticity. While heat can make body tissue mobile, if there is visible inflammation, ice should be used. After the initial acute period, the use of sports massage can be used to promote healing and excessive scar tissue from developing and help restore muscle flexibility. The use of progressive mobilization involves gradually extending the range of motion through which the injured part can be manipulated. For example, extending the knees against resistance to extend and relax the hamstring. Restoring full range of movement to the hamstring should be gradual by the athlete and a practitioner. Movement should be slow, progressive, and remain relatively pain-free. Graduated exercise consists of stretching, which will restore full range of motion in the hamstring and is a good indication on whether there is still pain present or not. Stretching will increase muscle and tendon length with proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation, as it is one of the most appropriate procedures for hamstring injury. This is another static stretch which involves the athlete to move his legs shoulder width apart and then reaching over to each ankle, including the middle, for 20 seconds. First, stretching towards the left ankle, 20 seconds, and then reaching over to the middle, and then finally towards the right, holding each position for 20 seconds. This hamstring stretch is a static stretch which you bend down without bending the knees to reach for the ankles, holding it into position for 20 seconds. Rehabilitation in the hamstrings is lessened. Exercises that involve pain-free movement should be introduced. Such exercises involve jogging and jumping to reach as high as possible, manipulating volleyball. Isokinetic exercises should be used as they develop strength through the full range of movement using resistance. Such an example is a stationary bike, which involves the hamstring to be in constant use. This exercise is essential after injury as it is used to take care not to strain the muscles. The use of total body fitness involves maintaining good level of fitness for the rest of the body so the principle of reversibility does not impact heavily on the rehabilitation procedures. Training is essential after injury as even though the athlete is pain-free in a full range of motion, the strength of the athlete might return as well as the total body fitness. The athlete may not be ready. Before returning, the athlete must involve the development of coordination and speed to full capacity. The athlete must be able to display skill proficiency equal to that of the athlete's pre-injury, which includes the ability to delay fatigue and perform skills such as jumping, accelerating, change of direction, and descent. Athletes have ethical considerations when returning to play. Pressure to participate from teammates, fans, and coaches, as well as the use of painkillers, can influence an athlete to return to play. Athletes need to consider many things before returning to play, as athletes rely on volleyball to provide them with income. Athletes who do not allow for an appropriate time for recovery can place themselves at further risk of injury and complications. Temptation can be a major factor for an athlete to return to play, as if the volleyball team has made it to the finals, an athlete's temptation to play with them will push them towards such a decision. Internal and external pressures give the athlete temptation as well as without being recovered. Such internal pressure include boredom of being on the sideline, watching their teammate play, and the drive for success, especially if they are the key player in the team. Fear of losing position on the team, especially if the hamstring injury is at grade 3 and has a long time to recover. External pressures include financial pressure, especially if the athlete is only played if they play. Also pressure from the media, sponsors, and especially from family and fans through their expectations, and the pressure from the spectators. If the athlete falls victim to the temptation and returns too early, the injury can be further aggravated and will result in an even longer recovery time. Returning to play isn't just about waiting for time to pass by, but to get active and ensure that injury has recovered and that total body fitness levels are close as to pre-injury levels as possible. It is important that the medical staff, coach, and the athlete agree on the appropriate time to return to action. Especially through confidence and mentality levels, for a volleyball player must be confident that they can make jumps without hesitation, as the lack of confidence in the injured site will hinder psychological and physical performance, and that proves that the athlete should not return to play. There are many indicators of readiness to return to play, such as basic fitness levels and skills tests that are used throughout the season and measure an athlete's readiness and ability to resume playing, such as the bounce pass, which involves the acceleration and use of hamstring to extend to a certain degree continuously. Monitoring the progress of the athlete when returning to play to make sure that the athlete is as strong and is playing like pre-injury levels can be used through interviewing and discussions with the athlete based on the pain and confidence. Ongoing tests such as tests of physical readiness such as sprinting, deceleration, and jumping compared to pre-injury level through having footage of pre- and post-test injury to monitor any change. Athletes will benefit from feedback on their performance after injury as it helps to increase the confidence of the athlete. Ongoing medical checks should be considered until pre-injury levels are restored. Such tests are jumping like pre-injury and changing in direction at a high pace. The monitoring of the psychological readiness through informal observations of behavior, For example, when the athlete is going in for a jump based on their reaction and if they feel the pain of the injury. Coach, medical staff, and the athlete should feel confident upon readiness to return to play, providing support and proprioceptive awareness to the athlete. Attention and treatment from medical staff as a psychological form of treatment will affect after the injury is over. Using it is warming up and cooling down is vital for the athlete to go for a longer period of time, harder or more specific towards the aimed at the injured site. To make sure the athlete is ready for activity or even training. Such warm-ups are laying down and quickly getting up in order to make the first bounce of the volleyball. Extra time and care at the injury site to maintain adequate flexibility and blood flow to prevent re-injury. Warm-ups and cool-downs should be designed by coach or medical staff practitioners, specially aimed at the athlete to prevent re-injury and get the injured site ready for play. Return to play policies is administered by coaches and volleyball administrators, maintaining guidelines for athletes who manage injury and decide whether to play with injury and return of the athlete. Determining when the athlete is ready to return to play depends on the nature and severity of the hamstring tear. If the hamstring tear is a grade 1 or 2, the athlete is able to jog and extend the knee against resistance without pain and is able to resume playing at a shorter period of time after the injury. If there is extensive inflammation and pain and graded of a grade 3, the athlete should not return to play and medical attention should be advised and the use of a practitioner and should monitor the progress of the athlete, maintaining and following guidelines to get the athlete ready to play and return to competition.